I'm reviewing the last movement of Beethoven's Pathetique Sonata, Opus 13. I think it's number 8. I'm working with a student right now, and we were suggesting to each other to try to play all of it at a back tempo where you can control everything, even the difficult parts with the runs and all kinds of things that go on here. But I want to kind of zone in on the mood switches. Beethoven's known for abrupt mood switches. And this last movement definitely has a lot of that. And you have to kind of not only be breathing along with these mood switches and keeping your cool, as I should say, but also choreographically knowing how to use your arm weight variations, and also the balance between your hands. At the very beginning, I think of it being a little bit Mozartian, the very first few lines, because you have a lot of broken chords. Not an Alberti bass as such. Some of it does have a little bit of sounding like Alberti bass. But a lot of times he rolls 4-note chords out. 4-note chords, such as that first C minor chord is already a 4-note roll. And the best thing to do is to do rotation. The reason I do the rotation is so I don't get the notey sound in the left hand, but I get more of a group sound, a group feeling going across, because I want the group feeling to synthesize with the right hand's group feeling, such as this. So I want to get this kind of sound, and I'm going to be in back tempo first, because that's a good way to do it, to control everything you want. So now the other thing about that beginning is I want to keep that left hand down. I don't want that thumping out, because it is like harmony. As if I blocked it, it would be. So definitely not going to be jumping out over the gorgeous melody. And it's in a kind of heavier part of the piano, so you have to go out of your way to lighten your arms and use the rotations. The rotations allow these to roll along in 4s, these left-hand notes, because they're 4-note blocks. And you can always block first. And then here I would roll. There's different ways of blocking. But when you kind of see a cluster that can be a particular chord or triad or 4-note chord, with double root, it's a good idea to block it out. The idea of the spatial relationship of the intervals. So if I did this, and this I don't see anything to do, but then I did this, and then this, and then this, then I go back to the 4-note blocks. And then this is a 2 chord with a 7th on it. And then a 1-6, the first inversion. You don't have to know all this. It's a 6 chord with it's really an augmented 6, we call this, and that leads to the 1, 5, tonic, dominant, tonic. That's very important to know that, because then you find your way more easily. You learn a little better the more context you have of what you're playing. So then I'm just going to start doing rotations through this and making sure I have light arms, because I do want to rehearse into the balance that the left hand will be lighter than the right hand, that will carry, in this first page, I call it like an A section, that will carry the melody. Now the other thing I tell students to follow is once you start that blocking, you hear 2 C's and what's called the fundamental bass on the bottom. Eventually you're going to start seeing the fundamental bass move down like this. The F, the E flat, the A flat on the bottom, the G, and the C. And the reason I like doing that too, because even if I rotate, I don't want every note of the 4-note rolls to be the same thread that I'm listening for. I'm listening really, in a sense, to what's moving and what's staying. At the very beginning, I'm really thinking of C for the first measure. C, C, Okay, now I'm going to have to keep that quiet, because this hand, which I'll rehearse alone, will be a little deeper, even though it's piano. It's got to be soft, because it has to be even softer. So I would pull up my dynamic a little bit to factor in that this is a heavier part of the piano and could jump out over the melody. So see, M, P, and P. M, P on top. quiet that left hand has to be, because that can be way too heavy and interfere with the thread of the melody. Okay, so I tell the student to practice even slower when they're first learning, or reviewing a piece. Certainly I'm coming back to it. And I'd even go to the length of playing it super slow, because the slower you play with what you want to do and control it, the better it bodes for the development to the tempo you want, where you don't lose the control and the shapes of the phrases. So I would go to this length. Underneath. It takes a lot of control, because that left hand would just love to jump out over the right hand. Now this next part, this takes up in measure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Measure 5, we had this of the first phrase. And by the way, those staccatos are really important, because it gives you the dance, a sense of the dance, because you have a lot of legato, but then you have these little staccato notes that lift up that first theme, so that it has a dance-like quality when you really do the staccatos. Now when he comes in with part of that first part where he does da-da-dee, da-da-dee, then da-da-da-ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. Now I tell the student, play that a little deeper, because now he's added an octave here. Before we just had a thinner line here, right? Da-da-da, da-da-da, ba-da-da, ba-da-da. Second time when he comes in, doesn't say a different dynamic level, but it's obvious to me that he's got the left hand down here against the right hand up here. It's going to be naturally bigger. It's just going to have to come out all by itself bigger. And you don't want to be puny here. You want to say, now you're getting a little more intense with that. Octave, short, da-da, octave, short, da-da, da-da, da-da. I might pull that down there at the end, because after that, he has a crescendo. So it's almost like you're trying to figure out how you can do a crescendo later by coming a little bit back at the end of that little cadence, so then you can go forward again. Because it doesn't really, you have to read between the lines of what to do. The reason I pulled it back was now I have to go more now, more, and even more. So I needed to have a lot of margin to bring that first part into a crescendo. So that's what I did. You do that crescendo, you have kind of an Alberti bass in the left hand, as you have this. And it's true, I want to make sure the Alberti bass doesn't get notey, where I have every finger going up and down. I still want to get that sense of chords that are broken. It's good to do this. And you can do wherever you see the suggestion of broken chords, you do chords to get the spatial relationship, and also it helps you with the balance too. So now when I get to that crescendo, I backed up a little. So this whole first part up to measure 17 has been in C minor. Now what he does next is he goes into secondary dominance. He has a chord in measure 18, which is a C7, or a dominant of F minor. Now you can say to yourself that F minor is related to C minor, which is the home key. It's called the subdominant key. And what he does following that is a sequence. We call it it's a harmonic sequence, also a melodic sequence, from the dominant of E flat. So he's done dominant of F minor, and then he's going to do dominant of E flat, and he's going to stay in E flat for a beautiful, again very Mozartian in my opinion, dolce set of measures, which again builds. He never stays staying with the dolce. He's always getting ready to intensify and then pull back. That's what I mean by the mood switches, where you're in dolce, then you're going forward, suddenly a crescendo, and then you have these SFs, which are these punctuated chords. And so it does involve a lot of emotional switches in quick order, especially when you play this in tempo. It's going to go quicker, especially because it's in cut time or alla breve. You're going to feel it into. But we're doing a back tempo on this. So after he came out of those big chords in the first section where he has dominant tonic, push, push, then he keeps that big sound, but he has more of a SFP, which is much more of an accent into. I'm going to go slowly. Now he's going to resolve that to F minor. Now he's going to dominant of E flat. He has an SF, an FP there. He calls it an FP. So you resolve it. Now what I might do there, coming down, is maybe a little more arm weight, because the next measure is the dolce. So there's a little subtleties that make one performance more engaging to the ear than another very flat line. So that left hand and that right hand have to synthesize nicely. You have that gorgeous melody on top. You have the rolling broken chords on the bottom, which you can do all your blocking. You're blocking. Listen to the fundamental bass, the first note of the 4. Dominant, dominant, that was tonic, and then surprise, E flat minor, parallel minor, augmented 6 chord to the dominant, that's the dominant of, in this case, E flat minor, or dum. Okay, so to play this really beautifully, you have to have that rolling left hand. Very beautifully done and quiet. And this hand being a little bit more. Now here we have 2 voices here, an under voice. This is E flat minor. That's that again, going crescendo and then pulling back. So really slowly, good to practice slowly. Surprise. Triplets. So what he does here is he goes into this new little subsection of this section, which goes into triplets. And we haven't had triplets before. After he goes through that beautiful dolce, does a crescendo, pulls back. He has these. Meanwhile, this hand is doing, in conjunction with that left hand, is doing the beautiful triplets. And the triplet has to really have the breath, B-R-E-A-D, the broadening of a quarter note into dividing into triplet sounds. So you don't crowd your triplet. The triplet really opens up the beat more. It stretches it out the way I hear it, especially when he gets to here where he's redundantly doing eighth notes before he goes to triplet eighths. He has roll. back to different, complete change mood here, like a choir, and then crescendo, back to triplets. And then drag it. Now you're back to this is the Rondo. It's called the Rondo section. This keeps coming back. Then bigger, less. So everything you did on that first part is coming back here on that Rondo section. And he did go into E flat, lots of E flat triplet notes through the E flat major. And then finally took away the B flat of E flat major, brought us into C minor harmonic, which would be this. Remember, C minor's relative major is E flat. So they relate. But when he goes to a B natural, he's gone into that. So that's important. And that transition back to the Rondo section is very important to shift gears again. 1, 2, 3, triple it. Shift your gears back to. Short da da, short da da, da da dee, more da da dee, short da da da. Drag it, bass. Then part 3, when I do another video, will be. This is all back tempo. Which we will do in another video.